Fair, Jane?
Absolutely fair. Very excited that you guys are all here. We are going to go ahead and move forward for time's sake. And if my connection becomes a little bit insecure, I'm going to go ahead and take off my video so that you guys can still see the PowerPoint. But for those that don't know me, I'm Jane Maringer, and I'm very excited that we have put this together for you today. I think obviously it's very timely. I'm with my partner, Karen Howley. So I manage the first year students who are full-time MBA students here at Jenkins, and I partner with Karen Howley in the full-time space where she works with the second year students. And we're really just here to answer questions. As she had mentioned, we'll have some content that we'll cover, but if you have questions throughout, please feel free to go ahead and mute yourself, but put yourself, make sure the chat box is available so that you feel comfortable to just shoot us that message, and we'll be able to, either if we know it's coming up, we'll probably push on and keep going. Otherwise, we will address it, and Karen or I will bring it up. So without further ado, any questions before we start? Good. I hope this is a rowdy bunch and it's just all on mute. So today we're going to cover a couple different things, right? We're going to talk about the myths. Obviously, we're in a unique environment. So understanding what fact versus fiction is going to be pretty critical to a job search, especially say you are in your internship search and you have yet to solidify an internship, or if you're in full-time search mode, you haven't solidified something, or say you have, or you're even a working professional and you have a job and there are some insecurities to what's going to happen, because right now we're in uncertain times. We're going to help measure what those fact versus fiction are and really talk about a couple myths that are important for us to just share with you. We're going to then walk in a series of strategies that, sure, sometimes maybe you've heard them before, some might be some reminders or some refreshers for you. Some might be new, and some might be things that you've never really done before, but that you've had the opportunity to really understand what this environment has done to be able to change the course of how you search and how you really have success during that search. Then we're going to just go over some common reminders, some of those basic tips that, yep, again, some reminders, things that you may have heard of before, but how do you address them in today's situation and really the ever-changing, ever moment to moment that's happening, and making sure that you're relevant and that you're ready to go. And then we'll just jump into any questions that you have that we haven't been able to address throughout the session. So with that said, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about myths, right? So it's really important, I think, for me to just set the record straight. The first myth, no one is hiring. Well, obviously in this time, we understand that certain industries are taking hits, but the reality is there's some growth in various industries as well. So those that may not have been impacted as much, there will be opportunity in other places. And so what that means for you all is absolutely, yes, people are hiring. It's how you get that information and know who's hiring to be able to solidify those opportunities and keep connected with the companies that are hiring. One resource that we wanted to show you is, I'm gonna send this out in a link later or even in an email, but to show you proof that people are hiring. This is a live feed that shows all the companies that are hiring in real time. Shows the ones that are on hiring freezes, which we are going to address and talk about. But the green is to show you all the different opportunities that are still out there and the people that are still hiring. So yeah, there might be some other colors in there, but the reality is this: there are people that are absolutely hiring. And
Jane,
yeah.
click on your screen to show them that. I think it's still showing us the PowerPoint.
Oh, did it not show it? Okay. Is it showing it now? No? Is it still showing the PowerPoint? Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat box for everybody to pull up, because I think that might be the easiest. Because it actually gives you a lot of information on exactly what's going on in the world. So if you guys have that link in the chat, go ahead and pull that up. Okay, is anyone having trouble getting to it?
And if you scroll down, when you get to it, scroll down past the text and you'll see a couple of different graphics.
It literally says updating live, and I'm sorry, I have no idea why my computer's not showing that without making it too difficult. It shows you all the companies that are hiring in green. And if you look, there are a lot of them. So I want you to be fully aware of what that looks like. I think that's really important, especially as rumors fly. I think I've heard so many students come to me saying, I've heard so many things are being rescinded. That's, sure, the occasional thing is happening out there, but the reality is people are hiring. So I want you guys to know that because you need to know who's out there. Myth 2, networking is dead because of social distancing. What I would tell you is this is the time to network. The way you use your time is going to be so important because not only is networking not dead, this is an opportunity where people are truly available. Sure, people are having to pivot and switch their lives, but I don't know if many people follow sports here. I'm a huge sports dork, so obviously I'm going to reference that. But Dick Vitale even put out yesterday on Twitter his availability that he wants to come visit online classes. People are willing, people are interested, and people are open to coffee chats and informational interviews. So if you're not taking this opportunity to network and find time to create a virtual session with someone or reach out to them, that's wasted time. We want to make sure that even if you are working, say you're a working professional and you're still, you have your job, you don't really want to go out and network a whole lot. What are those connections that you've built within your organization? Go rebuild those or go expand them a bit. Make sure that you're having the opportunities where you're reaching out to people directly and really just getting to know them again or getting a pulse on what their projects are, what they're currently doing. This is the time to network. Myth 3, don't approach companies that are in a hiring freeze. I love this because the minute you hear hiring freeze, I think everybody just stops and they just move away, right? It's like a big red X on you and you move on. But the reality is, if you stay in connection with those companies, first of all, they are going to have a lot that's going on from a work perspective. Sure, they might be having a freeze right now. This too will end, and they're going to eventually hire again. Being connected with them and having being top of mind is definitely an opportunity to, if it's a company you're interested in, stay connected, be there. Not only that, but looking at the way that people manage their workforce nowadays. So maybe they're on a hiring freeze, but people get really creative, and that actually leads me to the next one. They create temp and contract work where they have supplemental work. So it's really important to understand that not only should you be approaching companies that are on hiring freezes, but be open to contract work and temp jobs. They're not a dead end. Those are opportunities where they have work and they have the consistent work there, and that's why they want to bring someone in. So you'll have to prove yourself in terms of your value, and it gives you the opportunity to do that. It's a door to do that. And really just opening that and looking at the fact that there are temporary positions and contract positions out there that could turn full-time. I believe from a conversion rate, LinkedIn says that most temporary positions, at least 80+% convert over to full-time opportunities or allow for an offer. So think about that number. I think it's a time to really consider and be open to that. Then, obviously, myth 5, all you can do is send resumes and wait. For those that have been in my MBA 610 class, you all know how I feel about this. And really anybody that's doing a job search or even just trying to see what, get a pulse on the environment to see what opportunities potentially could be out there. If you send a resume out there and you wait for the phone to ring, you're really doing yourself a disservice. You can seek positions that aren't necessarily being advertised by networking. And it's really important to know that. 82% of all positions that are posted, LinkedIn has this out there, and my students have heard it before. They probably know it verbatim at this point, but 82% of all the postings that have been out there in the past were already filled, because networking is such an available thing, and people are using that to connect and put smart people in those roles. So it's really important for you to be able to know that sending out a resume and waiting isn't going to help you, especially as you see those jobs online kind of deteriorate, or there aren't as many. It's really important to network and get connected, because they are out there. You have to work to find them, but they are. Any questions about the myths? Yeah.
Yeah, we have one question from Carly asking about whether you're aware of any data from past economic downturns or recessions about how long those hiring freezes last, and how long it may last past the particular event, once you start coming out of a bad economic cycle.
Absolutely. Carly, that's an awesome question. And I would say not only was I laid off after 9/11 in my first company, and that's how I ended up at SNL, but the second thing that I had been through is I actually experienced the recession in 2008 as the head of campus recruiting at Credit Suisse, an investment bank, which was a lot of fun. So I'm very familiar with how these recessions go and what the trajectory is in terms of a workforce. And the reality is this: most recessions, they have a lead up. We didn't have a lead up. We were under 5% unemployment for a very long time. And so economists, if you read now, it won't be a typical recession where it takes 12 to 18 months to build back up. They really truly believe, because our economy was so stable in the beginning, no matter how long this lasts, and I think that's the uncertain question, right? So the hope is that by Q4 of this year, things will just be back up and normal. We don't know, and we won't know based on a lot of information that's still coming in. But because the economists think that we were in such a good position to begin with, that this isn't a typical recession where it's going to have that long ramp up to get back to where we were. So I hope that answers your question. Did you want to add anything to that, Karen?
I think that was perfectly said. This is very much event driven. This is not economics driven or fundamentals driven. Well,
and that's such a huge thing to make that distinction. So I want you guys to know that, because most people, when you go into recession and there are, reductions in force or there are hiring freezes, it's because the economy has been bad for some time. So this really is a very different event. And I really do believe that people will get on their feet very quickly once everybody's healthy, or once they're able to see that, curve drop. So with that, let's jump into strategies. So we talked a little about it, right? I've already given you the, please don't just apply online and let it go. But the reality is, even in a recession, there's a lot of business activity going on. So it might be harder to find it, like I said, but the shotgun approach of just sending your resume in and applying is not going to do you good. So even if you have the opportunities, don't forget that if you're getting an opportunity where you are finding something online, connect with someone. Find someone that's there. Maybe it's an alum. Maybe it's someone who you went to high school with. Maybe it's someone that used to live in your same town. However you can make that connection, connect with them, so that it isn't just a shotgun approach of sent my resume, crossing my fingers, right? That's a huge thing. Then focus on growth and recession-proof industries. I can tell you right now, if you are interested in supply chain, oh my goodness, people are hiring. Logistics, people are hiring. This is an opportunity for you guys to look and see, okay, where are their growth industries? And what does that really look like? How can I get there? And the link that we sent you with all the companies that are hiring, you can understand why the Walmarts of the world, why the Amazons of the world, why Instacart, they're hiring in masses, because they have a lot of opportunity very quickly to help navigate through this event, through the COVID-19. And the opportunities that are out there for those growth industries, they'll continue, right? So it's one of those things that you can get really excellent skills and really play a part in helping and providing yourself as a solution to people's problems. And that's a huge key. So understanding what those are and looking and seeing, that's absolutely going to be important. Next is identifying the company, then the job. And what that means for you guys is to remember that, sure, everybody has companies of interest, and I appreciate that, especially those that sat in my 610 and I made you go through lengthy lists. I'm grateful that you did that. The reality is opening that search up a little bit is going to be important, and I would look at more than just the job at this point. I think you need to look at companies that are going to afford you opportunity where you can get your foot in the door, right? Because there's an increased demand on supplies. If you can get your foot in the door and really look at different opportunities in terms of the company, if they have the same values that you have, if they have something that, you know, from a trajectory perspective, they have a marketing department that's really awesome, but right now you've got some supply chain skills and that's where they have a need, absolutely take advantage of that. Mobility is something that is so critical for companies nowadays. It is a corporate nightmare if people don't stay in their jobs. Attrition is always talked about. Retention is something that people pride themselves on. So be willing to look at the company and then the job, because if you can get yourself in there, it really will allow you for that opportunity to prove yourself and mobilize within the company. Okay. Then I think this one is, you've heard it from us all before. So those that have sat through any session with us, sometimes it's okay just to call it project work. And what that means is for those that maybe you have a genuine interest in certain companies, reach out to them, embrace project work. I am happy to come in and provide a solution to something that you haven't been able to do. What is it that you guys are so busy with right now that you're overwhelmed with, you're unable to get to, and how can I help? Here are my skills to be able to solve that for you, and I can do that this summer for you as a project. Because once you start talking project, it's like a consultant, right? Or a contractor temp worker. They have the work. And so if you can provide yourself and sell yourself as the solution, they're really open to bringing people in. It just gives it a different twist, right? So that you're not just saying, I need an internship. Well, hiring freeze, I can't have an intern. But the reality is I do have a small budget to be able to provide project work or contract work. This is your opportunity to embrace that and own that. As we talked about it in terms of growth of company and being able to get in the door, this is your chance to show them who you are and what your value proposition is. So really embrace it and be open to it, especially in this market.
And Jane, we talked about when you and I were preparing this, that for those of you who are in jobs already, think about the strategy as well. Lean in to maybe if a team needs some additional support, and maybe it's not your team, but they just need a little additional work. This is the time to be leaning in. This is the time to be raising your hand for special projects. This is the time to make yourself essential, or just, you know, somebody that the company and the organization cannot do without.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. That's such an important factor. So we're going to talk about being flexible, and that's part of it. It's really raise your hand, because this is a time where if you go to your manager, if you're a working professional or if you're a part-timer and you've got the opportunity to say, hey, I know we've got a lot on our plates and we're not able to hire, or we've got a lot going on. What can I do? I definitely have a lot on my plate, but from a prioritization perspective, I want to be able to pick up where we've got some gaps, and I'm happy to provide that because I have ABC skills to do that. So raise your hand. It is so smart to be able to do that right now. And as Karen said, making yourself essential, I mean, who wants to lose an essential employee, right? I think it makes it a lot more difficult. And having been that person in the room as an HR representative, if you've got someone who's really just volunteering and saying, hands up, I'm happy to jump in, and this is in any situation, it's a lot more likely that they're going to say, okay, we'll figure out a way to make this work and keep these people. focus on your value. I think, you know, if we're asking you to do project work, or even in your search for your internship or your full-time job, where are you showing your value? And I think this is not only important for normal searches, but especially now. Where in the past have you, for example, saved the company money, increased efficiency, decreased, decreased issues that they've had, made sure that they have a positive revenue? What does that look like? And where can you directly point to some of your experiences where you have done that and been the solution? This is an opportunity for you to do that again. If you don't know your value, sit down and look at your resume. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, your value proposition. But if you don't know it, nobody does, and you need to figure out what that is, because this is an important way for you to, if you have 30 seconds in talking with someone to tell them what you've done from a positive perspective, you can absolutely show them your value and show them how you've positively impacted things and how that's really made a difference in your past, whether it's work that you've done, even as an MBA, say it's one of your practicums. Show them that, know your value, and focus on it. And then really using your resume the right way. What does that mean from a strategy perspective? It's a great time to be online, right? Who is not online right now? So if your resume isn't up to date and your profile on LinkedIn isn't connected and is not up to date, I recommend you do that right away. I think the most important thing is everyone's at home. We talked about that a little bit earlier. So how are you staying actively involved in using your resume? And specifically LinkedIn, which is the professional way to connect with people. Are you liking things that are the company of interest is putting out? How are you liking them? Are you staying, are you following them and staying connected with them? Are you reaching out and asking for informational interviews? So using your resume and just sending it to someone, obviously it doesn't go far, but when you've got the ability to connect with so many people who are sitting in front of their computers a good 8 to 10 hours a day right now, it gives you that opportunity to show that, hey, as an HR person, I now am able to look back and see, oh my gosh, this person connected a lot with our company. I see that they saw the 3 videos that we put on the video series of what to do in this situation with our environment, or how we're trying to use sustainability as a force to improve our future. Whatever that looks like, be active and use your resume the right way. And then practice. So Karen and I were talking about this yesterday, and the reality is we don't expect anybody to be perfect because you're human, but there is no room for error. And what that means is you have an opportunity that if you're in front of someone and you do get an interview, you do need to be your best self. So if you're not practicing and staying on top of it and making sure that I can directly say, these 5 characteristics of the job description, I've done this, my skill set directly applies to this. This is a time to make sure that you are connecting it and not expect other people to connect it, and that you're not making simple mistakes. This is a do the extra thing, go the extra mile, thank you letters on time. This is not only not a room for error, but if you look at the competitive job market as a whole, and that's really what it is, right? When you have an opening for a job, it's a competitive market. So what do you think now looks like? And when we say no room for error, it doesn't mean if you make a mistake that you can't fix it. I don't want you to feel that way. But practice so you don't make those mistakes. So you are realistic in how you're approaching things and that you're making sure you're effective. I think it is critical not only when you practice, but it's also really important to be flexible, right? So when people say you have to be flexible, right? I think most people understand that, okay, that means I need to open up my search a little bit and maybe work for less money, or maybe it's a case in a tough economy where I have to compromise a little bit on looking not just in marketing, but maybe I'll look in marketing and sales. No, being flexible means working different hours, commuting a little further, taking the contract job or even the temporary job. It means making sacrifices because those sacrifices turn into jobs. And that is just the reality. So being flexible and focusing on the skill set and not the job titles are really going to be a very important aspect in making sure that you're successful in a search that's right now it's a downturn. And when you look at what's going on in our world right now, a slow economy doesn't mean that you won't have a job at the end. It just means a longer job search, right? And sometimes if I told you, here's how the path to get to your dream job, the reality is there are many paths to get to that dream job, and you don't just have one solid path. You may have several stops where you gain significant skills in different places to be able to get there. So think about that and think about the fact that being flexible is crucial and very important to not only the company, but your success as a candidate. Karen, do you want to add anything before I move on?
I think the concept of flexibility right now, with so much uncertainty, a lot of companies are finding that they need to shift their business model quickly. They have certain aspects of the business that they were expecting should be their growth aspects this coming quarter, and suddenly those are completely dried up. And a different part of their business is the growth, is generating the growth right at this moment, given the environment we're in. And so as you demonstrate flexibility, this too allows the company to say, great, you're a utility player, we can put you here, or we can put you there. That's what we need right now, because our business is shifting day by day, and we need to be able to be quick and reactive. Having the right people in place that will help us be quick and reactive is really important. So you're signaling to the company that you are a flexible employee that can be deployed where they need them and will help to sustain the business as it goes through some of these bumps and iterations and machinations until things settle back to normal. So, you know, as Jane said, being flexible to think a little outside of the box is going to serve you very well. And ties in, I mean, all of these I think are great strategies that tie together, but even when you say no room for error, what Jane means is when they say, we have an opportunity and it can be in this, you know, it's in New York or you know, Kentucky or Charlotte, which one do you want? Best answer is, I will take wherever you feel you need me best. And I know not everyone can do that, but the idea is try to be really flexible with your answers and be quick with your answers too. If you take a day to get back to someone, there are 50 other candidates who got back to them within the first 5 minutes of receiving that email.
Thank you, Karen. That's awesome. And I can just say, from being the recruiter in that situation, if someone came to me at this point and said, and I've had that, I've had opportunities where I've had multiple places where I was hiring for, and if I said, hey, here are some options for you, I need you to come back to me. If I'm encouraging you a certain way, I promise you this, in terms of flexibility, cannot be understated, because you need to be all over it, and it needs to be almost instantaneous that, you know what, I want the job. Because as I told you guys before, if you get your foot in the door, especially those that are interning, the opportunities for you to get full-time in a different location, the reality is, I'll move mountains if you've proved yourself as an intern. And I did as a program manager. I will, if you are someone who came in as an intern and proved yourself, you tell me you want to go to New York City, I'm going to find a way to get you there. Because again, the retention is such an important thing. So please be flexible. It doesn't mean sacrifice everything that's on your wish list, but it does mean be open. And be open to the idea that if you have a career set, that you say, I've wanted supply chain for my entire life and I really can't find opportunities. First of all, we probably need to have a bigger conversation than that, because there are supply chain opportunities out there. But it does mean that, you know, go after anything that could be remotely transferable to that, because I think that's the thing. What can you make transferable? You know, how many times have I talked to undergrads or even MBAs who, you know, don't have a lot of work experience, and I'll tell them, absolutely put a nanny job or a camp counselor on your resume. And they look at me like I have 5 heads. And the reason why is because as a mom of 2 and a recruiter by nature, someone put you in charge of two innocent kids. That means you have to be responsible. That means you had to plan things out. So it tells me a skill set that you have there that is applicable to maybe what I need. I need someone that's responsible. I need someone that's ethical. I need soft skills right now. And that is one thing that we're going to kind of jump into right now. Little things not to forget. How do you stand out? When you've got people that are recruiting for soft skills, what is your value proposition? How do you know your unique value proposition and being able to articulate it on the spot? If you are on this video call right now and you are unsure as to what your value proposition is today, make a meeting with Karen, John, or myself. Don't wait. I think the most important thing for you to know is that you all have value. You have done things that are important. You got to have the confidence, and we're going to talk about it. But you have to understand what that value is, because I don't have time to guess what that is as someone that's going to be reviewing your resume, as someone that's going to be reviewing, or sitting with you in an interview. If you can't connect the dots for me, I'm going to move on, because the reality is, as Karen mentioned, I've got 50 other people that just contacted me about the same position. So understand how you bring value, what your skill set is, or what your skill set, what you can bring from a skills perspective, and make sure you understand how you have soft skills, what innate skills that you have that can be adaptable and applicable to anything. And that's really what we talk about when we talk about if you've been like a nanny or a camp counselor, or you've, in the past, you've been in supply chain and you've planned things out, and all of a sudden there's a logistics position. We can find things that you did that were supply chain that can apply over to the logistics and planning. So think about those things and think about the value that you can add. Karen, John, do you want to add anything to this one before I move on?
Jane, we have a question. We have a lot of students that have international backgrounds that are joining us today. And so there was a question wondering what companies might be looking for, or what value they might find specifically from a student with an international background.
Sure, great question. So what solution can you bring to me? Can you solve my problem? And that's just it. International, not international. If I've got a problem, especially if you are an international student, how can you solve that, right? What are you bringing to the table that shows me that, hey, this is a unique value proposition or unique skill set that I really can use day one and apply to what we're doing here? So understanding what that looks like is really important. And, I hate to say it, but I think as an international student, I know it looks difficult sometimes when you walk into the U.S. and I don't want to say, hey, I get it. I have been abroad before. I have had to work abroad before. It's not an easy thing. But one thing I can say to you is globalization is a real thing. And a lot of companies want that global cultural aspect. So you have it, you bring it. So that's a leg up in that. And if you can articulate and communicate effectively, not only that you have that background, that maybe you're multilingual, or even that you've had an opportunity to see how the other side of the world operates and how you can apply it to here and fix something, that's a huge leg up. And I would not underestimate yourself in that. Did that answer the question?
Jane, I think that was great.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you for taking the questions, Karen. I appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to jump on to common search reminders. I'm going to throw them all out there. I'm not going to do it once at a time. I want you guys to process these as we go through them. Be proactive. If you have not set up structured time to do a search, to network, to keep consistent with staying relevant with companies and seeing what they're doing, to find out where things are in terms of, hey, are they hiring? Are they not? If not, what does that look like? And where are they having problems? How can I provide the solution? If you're not being proactive and setting up time to do your search every week, let me remind you, you need to. This is not something that in 2 weeks from now or even a month from now, you're going to look back and say, I wish I hadn't done that. It's going to be, I wish I had. So make sure you're setting up that structured time, because it's harder when we work in an environment where a lot of you have changed over to classes that are online. Some are asynchronous, right? So you're kind of learning at your own pace. And sometimes that's hard to lose the structure that's been given to you. If you are a Myers-Briggs P, which I am, and I don't know if many are, but it is not, I can tell you right now, it is not comfortable for me to have a ton of structure. But the reality is, when I don't have structure, then I can kind of fly off and do what I need to do, but then it's midnight. So I've learned as a P that I need to put structure in my life. If you know that about yourself, put it as a class on your calendar. If you have an asynchronous class that's meeting separately and you've done it at your own pace, set that time up weekly on Tuesday and Thursday that you're going to go in and do your job search. It's important to make sure that you're doing that and you're not being reactive, right? This is a time where you could be extremely reactive. You don't have to be. Is someone asking a question? I can't tell. I'll keep going. Demonstrate confidence and prepare in advance. So we talked a little bit about this. The preparing in advance is really important. If you're not prepared to answer questions on the fly, and I think this is where a lot of people struggle, right? They go in and they practice, but they don't practice for every single question, because the reality is we don't always know as a mock interview all the exact questions that you're going to get. So you need to prepare as much as possible so we can throw the same question at you and make it be in different formats so that you understand how to demonstrate that you're confident at this, that you can do this, that your skills do apply, and that your behaviors are things that, you know, behaviors that fit within the culture and the company. So you've got to have that confidence. And this is, again, that's back to the competitive nature. If you don't have the confidence, right now I'm in a place where I'm looking at a ton of different resumes and I have the option to say, okay, this one seemed a little uneasy when I asked them about their practicum, and that's actually the direct experience that we need in this role. So I'm a little concerned about that. So if you don't have confidence with your answers and the ability to network and reach out to people and nail it in an interview, it's going to be seen. And then understand and develop skill gaps. So while you're at home right now, first of all, I'll give you a perfect opportunity. Cisco has given its entire portfolio of software and technology for free to people right now. If you've ever wanted to go work at Cisco, what a great opportunity to go in and play with some of their software and get certified in it. Go pick up a data analytics certificate. Go pick up how to be, a certification in Excel. This is the time to do it because you probably have a little bit more time on your hands than you have in the past. And so understanding what those skill gaps are and being able to develop them and fill them up with activities or certifications or understanding of research that you can do online, schedule that as part of your time. Figure out ways to do it so that you can develop.
I would add to that, I've seen a lot of courses being posted by IBM on LinkedIn. I'm connected with a few people. They are doing a lot of online training and courses as well. They're open to the public. And then be sure to look at an organization called Coursera, Coursera, actually started by one of my classmates from Stanford GSB. He's one of the CEOs there, but they are providing tons and tons of courses online, free courses that you can go and really learn lots of different things. So it's a great opportunity right now if you have a few gaps in your time time and skill gaps, to complete those, to close those gaps and really add to your toolbox.
Absolutely. And they're out there. Find them. Harvard just said that they're willing to give several classes online for free. Go find out what you need to learn and go for it. And then actively network, people. Network, network, network. I understand the discomfort with networking. I get it. But the reality is, if you're not doing it, somebody else is, and you're going to be left behind. So take the time to set up coffee chats and informational interviews. I cannot hit this enough. I know that people often say, well, I feel like I'm pestering people. Follow up. I can't tell you how many times that Karen and I have sat in a meeting with a student, especially even last week when we had our peer coach interviews, where people followed up and that's how they got the opportunity. So following up is a positive thing. So if you're actively networking and you're not following up, you're doing yourself a disservice. And follow up is really important to making sure that you say you're going to do something and you do it. It establishes trust and people believe in you then. And by the way, that's building your brand. So following up and making sure that they know you're available, checking in with them. If you don't feel like you have anything to directly follow up with, I've told my students this, and so I share it to everybody. You know, hey, how you doing? I know this is a crazy time. I just wanted to check in on you. I know that we've talked in the past, and I just wanted to tell you I've been thinking about you and hoping that you're doing well. It's okay to send messages like that as a network, as part of your networking. And then follow up with them in a couple months. Happy July 4th. I hope that you're doing well. When people have an opportunity to start hiring again, if they're not right then and there, those are the first people that are going to come to their mind. And so you want to be relevant and be those people. And then we talked about making yourself flexible anyway, but just make yourself available and flexible. Be open to the possibility that not everything is going to be perfect. You know, I mentioned that, you know, anything that might come over to you, it might be different than what you thought. But the reality is, you know, timelines are changing. So those of you that are in internships, you might be getting emails that say, okay, your May 15th start date is now going to be June 12th. The reality is being available and being flexible and saying, absolutely, I'm excited to be there. Is there anything I can do beforehand to help out or to make sure that I'm prepared? Those are the kind of people that they want right now, because everybody's dealing with a bunch of headaches, right? Especially as recruiting and program management, as they start to bring people in for full-time or internships. There's an opportunity where they're juggling too. Those are people like you and me who have families at home, who are trying to juggle teaching a third grader and the same time they're trying to get work done at home. And so anyone that's going to be a bright shine of flexibility and saying, I'm available, I'm willing to do this and be positive, is absolutely the person that I am going to be thinking of when I bring people in, and the first person that I'm going to want to meet. In terms, yeah, go ahead.
Just so I can interject one thing. For those of you who are in jobs already and are just saying, hey, what do I do in this uncertain time? These last 3 points of actively networking, both internally and externally, and following up and checking in with your colleagues and making yourself available, leaning into those extra projects, those are really the things you need to be thinking about if you're not in an active search, but you're really just trying to shore up your essentialness within your current environment and make sure that you've got a broad protective coating around you as you think about the fact that there may be some uncertainty down the road. Keeping those networks strong, both internally and externally, really important to do.
Definitely. And I think showing that you can be a remote worker and that it doesn't stop your workflow at all is a really important thing, right? Because I think managers have a fear of that. And so being able to demonstrate that's huge. And that's part of being available and flexible and just showing that you can adapt. And I think in this time, look, we all know it's very easy for us all to get stir crazy and for us to say, this environment, this market is crazy. But the reality is what goes up must come down, right? And vice versa. So what does that mean? That means that if you're optimistic and you try and stay the course and be positive, not only will that impact and be infectious for people in this environment, but I promise you it will lead to, on the curve going up in a positive way with jobs, that it will open doors for you and really make it so that you have the opportunities that you want, Maybe it won't be your dream job right off the bat, like we said, but opening doors for you to be able to get in and get skills that you don't already have and be able to apply and fulfill, a solution for somebody so that you can have the opportunity to grow. So be optimistic, be positive. It is not always easy, and I understand that, but it definitely is something as a candidate, when you have someone on one end of the line, if you've got someone who's positive and they are just being constantly lighthearted about it and positive, and here's what I can do for you, it stands out so much. And it's a lot of people, in that positivity, a lot of people don't realize how even a simple phone call, if someone catches you off guard, I can't tell you how many times as a recruiter I would call somebody, especially a college student, and I'd wake them up and they would let me know that, well, that 5 seconds in there where they either turn very positive or they're like, yeah, can you call me back? If they're positive, I'm like, you know what, I'm so embarrassed, I'm really sorry. I probably should have been more thoughtful about this, but I'm so excited that you called. Do you want to hear that, or do you want to hear, like, let me call you back later, right? So I think it's one of those things where constantly share the positive side. If you need to take a deep breath and let some steam out, call me, call Karen, call John, we're available. We can walk you through things, but be as positive as you can. With that said, any questions from you all that we can help you out with today?
So Jane, hard to follow up on your positivity theme because I loved that. That was a good message. But the flip side, there's a question from the audience asking about possible reneges from employers, canceling on offers that are made to folks. Do you want to speak to that a little bit in terms of what we're seeing and what possibly could come?
Absolutely. And please, John, Bev, Karen, chime in. I will tell you this. I think it's very easy, and that's why we wanted to talk about the rumor mill a little bit. Are we seeing jobs being rescinded? No, we're not. Have we seen a couple of internships be rescinded? We've seen a few, but for the most part, I'm actually still seeing people get a lot of interviews. One thing I can tell you is this: if you have a concern that your job or that your internship that you have solidified might be on the chopping block, I would not go out and solicit human resources and say, hey, I just wanted to check in and see if my opportunity is still available. That actually hurts you because, again, those people are juggling a whole lot right now. What I would recommend you do is, who's the hiring manager? Who are the connections that you have there? Reach out and get a pulse on what's going on in that environment so that you have an educated way of understanding what's going on. If you have kept in contact with your hiring manager or the team that you're going to work on, it's okay to reach out to them and just say, hey, I'm really looking forward to the summer. What can I prepare for in advance? I know you all have a lot going on right now. I've got a little extra time. So if there are areas where you have new projects that are going to come up and skill gaps that I can fill for you, I want to make sure that I'm prepared, and absolutely reach out towards that. I think from a rescind perspective, I can't say that nothing is going to, that, hey, 100% you guys are okay to go. But the reality is, as someone who's run campus recruiting programs, people are really considerate to not cut programs first, especially if it's an established program. And I'll tell you why. First of all, you're less labor, right? You're less costly labor. And second of all, you're a pipeline to a full-time program. Third of all, it takes me years to build my brand and one resend to break my brand. So I'm going to be as considerate as I possibly can to try and keep as many as I can. And if I've already solidified the internship, I may have to change it so I onboard you online. I may have to change it so you're online as a whole and we have to rethink what your job is. But the reality is I'm going to do whatever I can to try and minimize that damage to my brand, to you, because you're my future employee. That's my hope. And so with that said, what I would recommend, if you are scared or if you are nervous or you are anxious, I get it. I totally get it. And I don't want to tell you, hey, don't be. I don't want to tell you how to feel. I understand how you feel. But what I would suggest to you is keep in contact with your hiring manager, not HR. Definitely keep in contact with other people that you've been talking to at other companies, just as a point of contact. So that if anything does happen, you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm available for project work. And that would be a last resort, but that way you still are staying connected. So that's where, when I say networking, it's not just, I have a job, let me sit back and relax. Network now, just like you have been, because opportunities are out there to just connect with people that say all of a sudden things get better in a month and a half, and it easily could, we don't know. But say things get better and all of a sudden, okay, something gets rescinded. I hate that. We definitely want to talk to you about that and we want to hear. But then if you've got these connections in this network, use it, build it out, reach out to people. Things might in a month and a half pop back up where they've got opportunities and jobs that are coming in right and left for interns or full-time, or opportunities to mobilize. So just know that I know that it's scary, but the reality is stay connected in every way that you possibly can. Stay relevant. This is where you should not be a pest to the company, though. Let me be very clear. Do not follow up if they, and I've had this question of the last couple of days a lot. If you're getting your background and your drug screen for full-time employment or your internship, and HR has reached out to you, they've given it to you, and they have not gotten back to you, in a normal situation, you wouldn't be worried that they didn't get back to you, unless you have something on your background that you should be worried about. But the reality is, most people don't get back after that. They move to the next step of onboarding you. And so don't get nervous or freak out or get upset that they haven't gotten back to you. I'm getting a lot of emails that, hey, they didn't get back, so I reached out to HR and told them I'm really nervous, is the internship still on? If they're sending you a background check, if they're sending you a drug screen and it's completed, it's still on. Did you guys want to add anything?
I would love to just add a couple of things, Jane. I thought that was really well said. To pick up on your last point, I think, folks, this is a time when you need to be comfortable with ambiguity. And I know that's hard for a lot of you, but it is really important that we're comfortable with ambiguity. This is not the time to be pestering HR to say, what's my training going to be like? What's my onboarding going to look like? What's the training plan? What days am I going to be training? Who am I going to be working with? All of that is not sorted out yet if you're starting a position this summer. So you do not want to be the person who needs a lot of detail and a lot of precision right now, because these companies are shifting, as we talked about earlier. So you need to be comfortable with ambiguity, and floating in that sea of ambiguity is something that we're all having to embrace right now. So I would really encourage you all to think about that and embrace it, and do whatever you need to do personally to get comfortable with ambiguity, because there's a lot of that that's going to be following us in the next few months. The other thing I would just say is, we're all MBAs here, so be realistic about the economic cycle we're in. If your offer was with one of the airlines, then guess what? I'm thinking that yes, your offer may get rescinded. So be realistic. If your offer was with Macy's, who just announced that they're furloughing 150,000 employees, yes, if you're in retail and retail stores are not open to the public and they don't have a good online resource, then it's likely that the opportunity is not necessarily going to be there. So you kind of can answer these questions a little bit for yourself by thinking about, where was my offer? What industry is my offer in? How is my company faring right now? And you can think about, do I need to have a plan B or not? Do I anticipate that something might change? But if you're in an industry that is looking like it's still surviving, if you're in a company that's being nimble, that's flexing, then as Jane said, no need to put your hand up and create worry if there is none to be created. So, take a look at the environment, be realistic, use your MBA skills and knowledge to suss out, is this an elastic or inelastic industry? Is this an industry that can survive recession or not? Let's, think about kind of where we're going and where we've put our fortunes, in what hands. And then how can we use our value proposition to make sure that folks know that we can be nimble, we can be flexible, and we can be a solution to whatever problem.
If I can add to that question, I think it's really a fair question regarding reneges from companies, rescinded offers from companies. Our office is staying in close contact with our employers as well as other career centers just to get an understanding of what's going on. To that end, just this morning, we were in a Zoom meeting with 30 career centers from around the world. And in that meeting, we were sharing what we're seeing within our own community. Not one career center leader could speak directly to a full-time offer being rescinded. And now that's 30 career centers represented in this call. Not one. We are seeing to some degree, but not pervasively, internships being rescinded. Again, not pervasive, but we are seeing that. To that end, if that is something that you're concerned about, we've said it a number of times, that's when you take a project-based conversation there. Also, just so you'll know, we are in a Zoom meeting even tomorrow with our colleagues at UNC Chapel Hill and Fuqua and UGA and one other SMU, just to talk even more about what's happening and what are they seeing, and we're sharing information. So know that we're spending quite a bit of time understanding what's going on in the marketplace with our employers. We're on the phone a lot with our employers. We haven't seen the full-time rescinded offers, and we hope that we won't. And we're really in close contact with our career centers that are across the globe. So difficult situation, ambiguity, I think is the word. And so Karen, I take your point, and that's really an important point. So hopefully we have answered that question in spades for you.
Hey, everybody. Let me chime in on something here. Since I coach, and there's some of you guys here on the call with working professionals, I've talked to quite a few working professional MBA students, as well as some executive recruiters and some folks that hire other folks. One of the things I would ask you to think about is, as you read your Facebook and as you watch CNN and you read CNN.com and you watch television, you use a little bit of your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, to divide what you're hearing and the source of what you're hearing versus where you're at in this particular business world, in the MBA world. There's a lot of information that is in the popular press that's being packaged and distributed that's meant to go to the lowest common denominator to everybody. And so there's this message about how everything is focused, for example, on New York City, and everybody's losing their jobs, and they're referring to service-oriented and travel and tourism-oriented industries. Yet the students that I have, executive recruiters, it is business as usual, because the analogy is that we've got one big snowstorm encompassing us. There's an external factor versus the internal economic factor. And when that lifts, we're ready to go. We just had an executive recruiter panel discussion last week, and our guest said they're busier than ever because they know their clients are just as busy as they were. The business of being business is morphing more into an online format than in-person format. But they know that when this lifts, there's going to be so much business and so much activity that they can't keep up with it. And the executive recruiters are kind of sweating a bit because they don't know how they're going to be able to do all the work that needs to be done in the third quarter. So ask yourself, where are you hearing this? Differentiate that, take some breaths, and that might help you kind of keep a little bit of balance. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much, career services team, career management team. I love you guys. I love working with you guys. And I think all that information is so important. please know that everybody on this call, we are available to you. We are here for you. We're here to talk. If you have any questions about anything that you want to take offline, we have our appointments as always available for you. We get it. It's a crazy time. And so with that, did we have one more question? Nope. Okay, great. With that, I will let you guys enjoy your evening. Thank you guys for participating and being involved in today's session. We've recorded it and really appreciate your contributions and your questions. And again, we're here for you, and we want you to just stay safe. Hang in there.
Thank you,
And in
everyone.
an hour, we've got another Zoom webinar with senior executives talking about